So what makes someone, truly persuasive? It's often not about just having the best argument or the most charm. Today, we're going to dive into a playbook of some pretty powerful psychological techniques that are designed to influence anyone. Now, this comes from the online channel Dark Whisper, and these are the methods they claim really get results. So let's get into it. And that's really the big question, isn't it? The source material here makes a pretty bold claim that if you understand just a few key psychological triggers, you can become way more influential. But as we're about to see, this kind of power comes with a really serious warning label. And this is absolutely crucial. Right from the get-go, the source itself is crystal clear with this warning. These techniques can tap into our subconscious, so understanding them isn't just about learning to influence others, it's also about knowing how to defend yourself. We're exploring all of this for educational purposes, so that caution is definitely our guiding star here. Okay, so where do you even start with influence? Well, before you can persuade anyone of anything, you have to connect with them first. This first batch of techniques is all about building that foundation, that rapport, and doing it quickly and effectively. First up is something called mirroring, and this is such a fascinating, subtle tool. Look, it's not about becoming a mime and copying every single thing someone does. No, it's about gently reflecting their posture or maybe some of their gestures. So if they lean forward, you might lean forward just a little bit. Their brain subconsciously picks up on this and thinks, hey, this person's on my wavelength. And that creates this instant, unspoken bond. So how do you actually pull this off? Well, it really just boils down to a simple three-step process. First, just watch. Pay attention to their posture, the gestures they're using. Second, subtly, and I mean subtly, adopt a similar posture yourself. And third, try to match their conversational pace, not their accent, but just the speed and rhythm of how they talk. You put those together, and it creates this powerful feeling of comfort and trust. All right, our next tool is emotional labeling, and wow, this one is incredibly powerful, especially for calming down tense situations. It's the simple act of just naming the emotion that you're seeing in someone else. And the reason this works so well is that when people feel like you get them emotionally, their defensive walls just start to come down. It shows that you're on their side, that you're trying to understand, not attack them. Just think about how powerful a simple phrase like, "You seem really frustrated right now," can be. It completely changes the whole vibe of the conversation. It doesn't mean you agree with them, not at all, but it makes them feel seen, it makes them feel validated. And that is such a critical step in de-escalating a conflict and building some real trust. Okay, so once you've built that foundation of rapport, we can move on to the next phase, the art of the request. These are some specific, pretty classic techniques designed to seriously up your chances of getting a yes. So here we have two classic techniques that are, well, they're complete opposites, but they're both weirdly effective. With foot in the door, you start with a tiny, easy to say yes to request because you're banking on our deep need to be consistent. But with door in the face, you go big. You start with this huge request you know they'll say no to. Then, when you follow up with your real, smaller request, it suddenly seems way more reasonable, and they kind of feel like they should meet you halfway. Now, let's talk about a cognitive bias that every single one of us falls for. It's called anchoring. Our brains have this little quirk where they just latch on to the very first piece of information we get. That first number, that first price, it becomes an anchor that shapes every decision we make after that, and we usually don't even realize it's happening. Take a salary negotiation, for example. If the very first number that gets put on the table is $150,000, that number now frames the entire conversation. Every other offer is going to be compared to that anchor. Even if the final salary ends up being way lower, it'll probably be higher than if the whole thing had started with an anchor of, say, 100,000. That first number really does set the entire playing field. This next one is almost comically simple, but it is shockingly effective. Just use the word because. There is a famous study where people were way more likely to let someone cut in line for a copy machine if they just gave a reason, even a ridiculous reason like, because I have to make copies. It's like our brains are just wired to respond to a justification, even if the justification itself is kind of flimsy. Okay, now we're getting into the really advanced stuff. These techniques work by leveraging those predictable mental shortcuts, or biases, that our brains use every single day to make quick decisions. And they're so powerful because they operate just below the level of our conscious thought. First up is the decoy effect, which is a total staple in pricing strategy. You've definitely seen this before. It works because, honestly, Our brains are terrible at judging absolute value. We need things to compare. So the whole idea is to steer you towards a specific choice by introducing a third, less attractive option. This decoy is never meant to be chosen. Its only job is to make one of the other options look like a fantastic deal. Here's the classic popcorn example. A small is $3, a large is $6. It's kind of a tough choice. But now, what if we add a medium decoy for $5? All of a sudden, that large for only $1 more seems like an absolute steal, right? That medium size was never the real choice. Its only purpose was to make the large look like a no-brainer. Next up, we have the scarcity principle, which plays directly into our deep-seated fear of missing out. Good old FOMO. When something is limited, our brain just automatically thinks it's more valuable. This is exactly why phrases like limited time only or only 2 left in stock are so incredibly effective. They create this sense of urgency that just bypasses our rational brain and pushes us to act right now. And this quote right here, it perfectly captures a related concept: loss aversion. Psychologically, the pain of losing something feels about twice as strong as the pleasure of gaining something of the exact same value. So framing a choice around what someone might lose, like missing out on an opportunity, is a much, much more powerful motivator than framing it around a potential gain. So we've gone through rapport, persuasion, cognitive biases, but this brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most important part of this entire discussion: the ethics of actually using these tools. And it's so important to remember this. None of these techniques are inherently good or bad. They're just tools. And like any tool, say a hammer, they just amplify the user's intent. A hammer can build a house, or it can smash a window. The responsibility lies completely with the person who's using it. And that brings us right back to where we started, to the source's original warning. The power to influence people, it's not a game. It comes with a really serious responsibility to use it ethically and to be fully aware of the impact it can have on other people. So ultimately, that leaves us all with a final question to think about. Understanding these techniques, that's the first step. Deciding how and when and if you should use them, that's the next. So where do you draw that line for yourself? It's definitely something worth thinking about.